very good evening and welcome to this edition of the Fourth Estate. Charles Mwangu-Shampagi. One, apologies, we're starting a bit late than normal time. We're starting a bit late due to a few technical issues which have fortunately been sorted out. Last Sunday we were here and we discussed the crisis in Kasese district. In that discussion we were working with very little information because developments were still emerging at that time. And a lot of water has passed under the bridge since Sunday to today. Lots of people killed. The cultural leader, I'm told that's the correct title as per the Cultural Leaders Act, is still incarcerated, detained until the 13th of December when he reappears for potentially, when he reappears, maybe bail hearing then or anything else, but he's remanded until 13th. In Kasese continue with a lot of twists and turns. We hope we'll be able to get to the bottom of that at some stage. During the week, we also saw a phenomenal development on the African continent. One of the longest serving leaders on the African continent, the president of Gambia, Yahya Jammeh, losing an election and conceding defeat even before all the results were in. That's unheard of. The Gambia is a tiny country on the extreme coast of West Africa, surrounded by Senegal, with a population of about only 1.8 million people. So out of that, the total votes cast, by the way, are close to 600,000. The winner, 260,000 plus. Yahya Jammeh, who lost, got about 250,000 votes, and the other candidate got about 100 plus votes. But still, they have been able to go through a smooth election that will deliver a new leader in power. Yahya Jammeh is only 51 years, but has been in power for 22. He's handing over to a real estate developer called Barrow. We'll not be discussing all those. NTV is celebrating 10 years of service to Ugandans in the television industry and has organized a major economic summit focusing on agriculture and tourism. Can this lead Uganda to middle income status 2020 government target? And of course the transformation that we expect by 2040, if you go by Vision 2040. To discuss that tonight, let me start with my colleague, Agri-business. He works with AB InBev, which is the mother company of Nile Breweries.
Yes, good evening, Charles.
Good evening, Honor. Very nice to have you. We also have Mr. Apollo Segawa. Apollo Segawa is Executive Director at the Consortium for Enhancing University Responsiveness to Agriculture, Agri-business Development. CURAD. It's a mouthful, huh? Whatever you do, you explain to us what
it's like cure.
CURAD. And of course, Dr. Fred Muhumuza, who is an economist and teaches at the Makerere School of Economics. Dr. Muhumuza, very nice to have you.
Thank you very much.
You know, Charles, I'm happy that you always put me with the experts, so I will become a true journalist, only ask questions.
You're free to shoot as and when you're ready. Honor, let me actually start with you. Let me first ask you the first question.
Yes.
Then you can ask your questions to the guest in studio. You work with an international company.
Yes.
That's changed hands now a few times. The former Ugandan company selling to Submiller, which is South African, and I think was the second biggest, at some stage, now selling to AB InBev. Continuing to operate in a market like Uganda, the consumption end. And then you look on the opposite side, businesses that are struggling year in, year out. What explains that?
Look, I think one of the challenges of modern business is that it's working in a global web. The supply chains in particular are so integrated globally that if you are not able to penetrate the web, it's almost like the internet. You're always going to struggle, you know. We put a lot of emphasis in this, or in Africa in general, that we need to access markets in Europe, markets in Asia in order to be able to sell. But we have very little ability to penetrate as government we have not managed to, I mean, government has not managed to adequately integrate our economy with the global economy. That's the way I look at it. So when you look at a company like ours, it has that advantage whereby it's operating as a web. So things like sourcing, raw materials, sourcing, becomes easier. They're always able to enjoy economies of scale, and you are not competing between Uganda and Kenya, Uganda and Tanzania. It becomes one unit, and a lot of savings in that process.
How come we don't see that with a few other companies? AIG, for example, is a giant insurer. It's American.
No, I would say
it's winding up business in this country.
Yeah, but I would say most of the companies that are still afloat are highly integrated. That's the only way they can do it. So I think most of our companies that struggle, like access to capital, it's always going to be very difficult. Capital is there across the world, but they must trust you that you're able to operate within their control. Yeah.
Dr. Muhumuza, let me turn to you. You study the economy of this country. You've advised the minister. You've taught it. You've worked with some of the best economists, not just in the country, but in the world, globally. We have, NTV has put together a summit to discuss the economy. It's an economic summit to try and give its 2 cents worth airtime in putting together to have a discussion about the state of our economy. We've seen a major bank have trouble recently. We are seeing some international chains closing shop. And I was discussing with Apollo before we came on air. You have things like, yes, some local businesses appear to be growing, but you also have, you still have the highest, one of the highest creation rate of enterprises, but equally the highest mortality rate. How, in a nutshell, would you describe the Ugandan economy as it is today on a journey to becoming a middle-income economy by 2020?
I think you have just described it. So what I'm left with is to say why.
Why, yes.
Because that's what it is. Companies are struggling. You have some jumping onto the train, only to fall through the other side. They don't even stay on that train. Others are disembarking. It's a whole ideology. I think the problem with the economics is it is so simple because everybody practices it. So it is easy for people to do self-medication. You know, this is my body. So when I fall sick, I begin to do myself. But it's a little bit more complex than that. It is your body. But there are some dynamics of knowledge that need to be put in. Now, when I see a lot of the things we are doing in this country, but also globally, it's kind of anybody thinks because I'm part of the economic animals, I can prescribe something. So somebody comes and says, why don't we restart the airline? Now, as he has said, the world is so integrated that every time you see an airline take off from NTV, it has a connection with where these passengers are going to land, because there's another one which must pick them from there. Absolutely. And it is all worked out, when do I get to Kuala Lumpur, where my meeting is. So the tour and travel person dictated all those. Now, if your Uganda airline is going to leave at 4, and passengers must leave either at 8 p.m. or they must have left at 1. So you don't just say, but we have 1 million people traveling through Entebbe, I can squeeze in myself. Look at the bigger picture. How integrated are you in the airline industry? Because that is how the integration is. But everybody comes with a recommendation. Let's do this, let's do this. So I think for me, the biggest problem has been that anybody comes with a prescription, and so you have a catalog of things, and you have tried to do all of them, and at the end of the day, you can't do anything. Then eventually, all this kind of confusion filters through, because companies can't survive on hope. They must survive on realities. If those realities are not right, the companies will struggle. If there is no market demand, in economics, a simple thing we say, whoever makes this water, no adverts for any, is targeting you guys who drink it. If you stopped drinking this water for one reason or another, that chain will go back and collapse. Either you are poorer, you can't afford the water anymore, or you are not there. So this guy is already targeting the market. So when you look at the Ugandan market, can it support the number of industries that we have with the high cost of capital? And as On has put it rightly, there is cheap capital in the world. Japan interest rates are near 0. America, they are near zero. So if you're operating in a global environment, it is easy to tap there and bring here. You do your sourcing there, you do your production there. So it has to be a bigger issue driven by that self-motivation. But the private sector must do what synchronizes with the public sector. Because a lot of things for the private sector has to do with
what is the missing link? Is it in the public sector or in the private sector?
It is in both, because some of our private sector people don't want to be part of a bigger network. Somebody thinks I must cultivate my food, transport it to the restaurant, cook it, and serve it. They forget you have to find where is your space and do that bit. So you have a lot of Ugandans who are struggling with their own businesses, but it's my business, that's what they think. Rather than saying, let me find my space. But I also hear that coming through from the government space. We must add value. I've always said, no, adding value is a logical thing. You don't fry an omelette at the farm, but that's the final ultimate value addition. There are certain places where it makes sense to add value in the country. There are certain places where it makes sense to add value out there. If you look at the bulk of Ugandan manufacturing, we are just adding value to raw materials that are coming from India, from China, from wherever. Fabrics come in here from Pakistan, from Sri Lanka. We all put on suits. You just go and buy a fabric, they stitch it from here. If the Sri Lankans had said, let me make the suit and sell the suit, they would have a problem with their apparel industry. So those are the kinds of things that, where are the signals? Are we just practicing economics because we think we are in this space, or is there logic that is economic profession, that is a business mind, that we need to tap into? And I think that is where we need to go forward. Otherwise, what I saw messy, that anybody struggling in this economy can't make it on their own.
Apollo, you at Curad, this mouthful, the Consortium for Enhancing University Responsiveness to Agribusiness Development.
You got it right this time.
Yes, Curad, what exactly do you do? And because I need to ask, how does that tie into a discussion like we're having now? And if you could help break it down for my mother, who I believe is watching this show, and doesn't understand all the things that, those linkages that Dr. Mumza was talking about.
Yes, thank you very much. Chured, as I rightly got it the last time, Consortium for Enhancing University Responsiveness to Agribusiness Development is a leading agribusiness incubator in the country.
I'll deal for the announcement.
Sorry?
I'll deal for the announcement.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's information.
What we do is, just to pick on a few words that my fellow guests have thrown out there. A lot of business start and they fail in Uganda here. And more so, a lot of agribusinesses start and fail. Why? Because we lack institutions that can handhold, guide, mentor, and grow these young agribusinesses. So at Chura, that's exactly what we do. We nurture entrepreneurs, innovators, to start their businesses. Give them the environment that is conducive to do that. Link them with the systems. Integrate them with the value chain and ensure that they survive. So we provide a holistic support system to agribusiness in the country, to innovators in the country, to youth entrepreneurs in the country, so they can start something and grow it. Because we know the biggest problem we have here is jobs for the youth.
Once you mentor them, what actually happens? Because I'll meet, if I walked out of here, we'll meet 100 guys, 50 of them holding meetings right across at the Serena. We'll find many at the Sheraton, we'll find many at these coffee shops in town, and they're telling you, this is what we do. Question is, do you find fruits of your work once you get out there? If you go, Uganda Industrial Research was celebrating an anniversary the other day, and they are mentoring businesses. The question is, you don't tend to feel all these nice things talked about when it comes to the reality on the ground.
Now, that's what we do different in incubation, especially at Churad. When you ask me today, take me around town, take me to the country, show me what we have actually managed to do. Our process is systematic. We get the idea of the early startup business, diagnose it, assess it, ensure that it makes money or not by using our diagnostic tools. Then we are able to advise this youngster or this innovator or this business person that this can work like this, this can work like this. Drop this, think of something new. But if it happens to make sense, we go on and say, okay, how much money does it require to make sense? These tools are there, the diagnostic tools are there. I'm sure you can agree.
Sure.
We say, well, this business requires $10,000, $5,000. We go on and provide that capital to this business. We provide the person the technical expertise to brand, to process, to pack if it's a value addition. If it's getting into something new, right now we are rolling out a pasture seed project with the Minister of Agriculture. These people have never grown grass. They're like, how can I even start growing grass? That is make money. We get them together, train them and show them exactly how to make money from grass, from pastures. After the training, we provide the funding to get that started. We provide, if it's primary production, we link to the tractors, the mechanization efforts to clear the field. If it's value addition, identify the space to work from. Ensure the entrepreneur gets the right contract to get that done, to get into that space. Link him to the right equipment. Technical expertise. How do you brand? How do you come up with a label that will pass the UNBS certification? Have that together. Get them to start. When it gets to start, we're like, okay, where is the market for this product? Of course, we've discussed that. But really, we really handhold this entrepreneur to get out to the market. We provide the linkages, the marketing support, even the logistics. You've
been running this for about 4 years.
4
Is there
years.
impact? Do you find the impact?
Absolutely. I would say in these last 3 years, we started and supported over 100 enterprises. And I can actually take you and show you these enterprises. They're not only here in Kampala, they're across the country. And these enterprises have actually created over 2,000 jobs.
Dr. Mhumza,
Most of these are youth led.
one of the
But
things-
I think, sorry, before Dr. Mhunza comes in, I don't dispute that Mr. Segawa's group must be doing a wonderful job. But I think, to me, the missing link for most enterprises within the country is organized market. That's the biggest challenge in Uganda. And if there is anything government needs to do, it is to organize the market. I always like to give the example of how government could actually use education budget to spark of agriculture in this country by simply insisting on school feeding program. And say, for example, all the schools in each sub-county must be fed by farmers within the sub-county. On average, sub-counties have up to 10 schools, primary and secondary. And if kids were eating posho or maybe drinking milk, and all that has come within the sub-county, what better market would farmers have than that, which is guaranteed with a captive market, and those farmers can then grow to go to other markets, but government could first be the one to give them that market. It couldn't be accused of abusing budget. It will be growing the future of the country through kids, but also growing the farmers.
Dr. Mhumza.
Why is this voodoo economics? Maybe it is, but that's how I would see it.
Dr. Mhumza advised the minister at some stage, was advising the Minister of Finance. It's another mouthful. Minister of Finance, Planning and Economic Development.
Sure.
I mean, simple suggestions like the ones Ona is raising. If, or many years ago, children wore Nightingale uniforms from Ginger,
Yes, they did.
that would
I did as
sustain,
well.
yes, would sustain the cotton industry, would sustain the ginning industry, would sustain the apparels production industry. It's long gone out.
Yep.
It no longer exists. A simple school feeding program, like he's talking about, a meal a day, when people like, I think Bishop Zach Niringi and the others, Black Monday people, started campaigning for the midday meal at school. They said, you see, they are brought in politics. we can't have that discussion. Why are these, what could appear like simple innovations, why don't they seem to penetrate through government thinking and planning? And before we came on air, also one of the major developments that happened during the week was the death of Fidel Castro. And we're talking about Cuba and its healthcare system.
Yep.
You have interacted with the powerful people. Why doesn't this kind of thinking come through?
I think the thinking is in there. It's always the question I always ask when you say government. What is government? It can be so many things in different areas.
It's me and you.
People will begin to talk about this is my mandate. But remember, we have talked here about the main thing is about linkages.
Yeah.
So you cannot begin to say this is my mandate. A school feeding program begins to cut across so many sectors, all of which must sit and synchronize. Now you're beginning already to talk about money that should be for education, but it's not going to education. I would rather send this money to agriculture under the understanding that the food is going to eventually come to education. But somebody will come, and it can include even somebody from civil society, who say, now, why have you cut the budget for education? Because they don't see these linkages. That's why I said everybody,
No,
because
do the linkages exist?
everybody is an economic animal, so they think they are in this space and they should prescribe. So you automatically lose out those logical connections, where you are saying the reason I'm putting money there is I want it to appear there, and you'll benefit from it from that angle.
Absolutely.
Now, if you're going also to talk about school feeding, remember the night you've talked about. I grew up playing in cotton seeds. There were cooperatives. The seed would be come and thrown by a lorry in that store. There was an open store in front where the seed would be thrown. And any peasant would come with a basin or a sack or a wheelbarrow and go and grow their cotton. Now, you already have a night here that has an army of farmers who are producing the cotton. But now you try to set it up there. You run short of cotton. So why should I invest a $50 million processing facility? This is a whole talk of value addition when you have nothing to add value to. So eventually, my $50 million will go into trade. Let me bring the fabric from Pakistan.
What went wrong? Because you have traders, you do not have producers.
Exactly.
You have an economy that for the last maybe 7-9 years has been growing in the service sector,
because
in the construction sector,
yeah,
with little growth in actual production.
because the producers need to be organized in those structures.
Gentlemen, let's pick this discussion after the short commercial break. We'll be right back. Still watching the Fourth Estate, and we're discussing economics, tourism and agriculture leading Uganda to middle-income status. NTV, as we celebrate 10 years of service to this country, will be hosting an economic summit tomorrow, right just behind us, above us, actually. It should be somewhere above us here. And we'll be discussing economics and where the country fits in, the plans to become middle income, whether those are achievable, but more importantly, to break these things down for the ordinary you and me. If we're putting in a little money, where exactly are we putting it, and why do we need to put it in? Where do we need to be putting the money? Ona, you said you'll be asking questions, so I need you to ask the guest some questions.
And then we'll also ask him some questions.
Yeah.
Because I know where he works. There are value chains
Oh, yeah.
which have been supported
Because I
in the
know.
breweries. I studied, that was one of my best models. The barley with Kapchorwa, Senator beer. You understand the complexities.
No, I think Dr. Munza
Managing those things.
No, they are complexities, but indeed,
They can be done.
yeah,
That's the whole
they
point.
can be done when you have markets,
Yes.
which is
Exactly.
organized.
Yes.
That is the ultimate solution.
That is a solution.
Because I think Charles was trying to make the argument about cotton, you know. And we can use government institutions, from schools to prisons to armed forces and what. How much clothes would they consume? There is enough money for someone to set up a textile factory or expand an existing one. They would be motivated to do it when first of all, they have that guaranteed market as a springboard for them to then go to other markets to export. But government must be deliberate. And
Yeah, but
say, I know the president has made some
Yeah.
arguments about it, like the prison should supply furniture, but I think furniture may not be the best example, because the consumption of furniture is not
You see, that's
so
my whole,
organized.
that's
So-
my
so-
whole point. A
so
factory.
You are in the means of finance at
Yes.
some point. Why are these arguments defeated?
That's what I'm saying. A
consistently?
factory sits in between the market, where you are supplying whatever you're supplying, and the input.
Yes.
Now, my problem is underproduction.
Okay, now what
That
I
I
know,
set up a factory here,
No, what
which
would
needs 200 tons of cotton per day.
it will.
And you look for it, somebody has not organized
But
the
we
farmers.
live- but
Dr. Mumza,
this country lives in an era,
68%.
you described it,
Yes.
when once farmers know, farmers are very smart.
No, but
the
they need
moment they
organization.
know that there is market,
Extremely.
They need organization.
Provide the farmer with a market.
The biggest-
I am telling
the
you,
biggest
look at
frustration for
vanilla,
most
look
farmers,
at everything.
there is a stop
Who has let
start
the
to
farmer down?
farming activity when market
second
gets
has let the farmer
disorganized.
You are
Dr.
talking about
Dr.
farmers.
Dr. Muhammad.
I have seen
Dr.
this
Muhammad.
practically.
68%
Yes.
of this country's population is engaged in agriculture.
Subsistence agriculture.
Yes, and
Show them the
I
market.
want to mention
These
something.
are fellows who will tell you, I have cotton. They have a 40 by 40 garden.
No.
I have
No,
potatoes.
you
They
can
have-
sustain, you can
I want to mention
sustain
something.
I have
millions
seen
of
these
bales
realities.
using smallholder farmers so long as they are guaranteed.
That's what I'm
the
saying.
market.
Absolutely.
We are
Dr.
cooperatives.
Moheleza, it is about the market.
Smallholder farmers without a cooperative that brings them together, you're not talking.
I am telling you, it is
not
about
You need
the
a
market.
cooperative.
Exactly.
Dr.
And that's the
Muhammad.
point.
And it will form.
And where is the
you
cooperative?
provide the market. The cooperative will form in one day.
Where
I
is the
promise you.
cooperative?
It will form in one
The
day.
other day we were at the top 100, and we were all surprised to see Banyankole Kweterana is back. And it
the
won
market
some
is there.
trophies. Why can't West Uganda
Do you know
and
what?
whatever's
Do you know
emerged?
why it's back?
The local conditions in there, the production that has emerged, they no longer have a common crop.
Dr. Muhammad,
bring them back.
there is a comedian. There is a comedian. One of those comedians I like. He keeps asking, "What went what? What went wrong?"
Teacher, is it going to time family?
This cotton you're talking about, you said you wore Nightil
Yes.
ginger
and whatever
ginger
else they call it.
fabric.
Today, all the kids are wearing.
And I
polyester.
also grew the cotton.
The same people you're saying cannot produce, there's no production produced then.
Yes, I was part of the production process.
And does that go back to what
I was.
Ona talked about?
And I have already told you where I used it to get the cotton seed.
Ona asked a
Free.
question. Ona mentioned something which I think passed. He said, voodoo economics. Is that what we're suffering from? Because you're picking all these things from Harvard, from London School of Economics, and drawing models that are cut across, models by Jeffrey Sachs, by Paul Collier, and others, and putting them to try and implement them
No,
in the economy.
we don't do that.
What do you do?
The time I was in the ministry, I remember we were building our own models. Not necessarily the models in the analysis that we have put them.
World Bank, IMF,
No, Ugandan-based things. We would look at a value
now
chain.
Exim Bank models.
You would look at the value chain. We looked at specifically the oil industry. And I was analyzing the data the other day. In the last 10 years, from around 2005 to 2015, we have imported up to 3 billion worth of oil-related imports. Something you can produce here, Simpson, sunflower, soybean, and all those kinds of oil seeds. So we said, this is a good market. Let's go and look at it, the entire value chain. In Lango alone, in town in Lira, we found up to 20 oil processing facilities. They were working 2 hours a week.
Why?
There was no oil seed.
Probably off
crash.
season.
Now,
couldn't
Mukwano
be
had
there.
taken a back step and was supervising, I think at that point, about 40,000 small-scale farmers. Now, everybody was poaching on his investment. But he had taken that back step to try and grow the oil seed. And remember, when I'm buying a kilo of oil of Simpson or sunflower, I'm not buying that kilo, I'm buying the oil content. There were other people even importing the planting material from South Africa, which had a higher oil content, giving it to the farmers. That's why I'm saying you set up a factory here, you have just asked for a nightmare of issues. You have no idea how far you're going to end up. Trying to mobilize farmers,
So what do you
have
do?
all that money?
What
So
do you
we
do?
said, let us invest as government in this space of production. Because that should be government business. So that the manufacturer, the processor, continues where his space is. And that didn't work. For many reasons,
The
as I told
reason,
you,
the main
mandates
reason,
of
no,
peace.
for me, the main reason why it didn't work.
The only thing that worked was tea. Tea line worked very well. And you can see the tea production.
There's a
And
crisis.
why?
No, hold it.
Because
There's a
they were
crisis.
organized
There's a
tea
crisis
estates.
in among the tea growers in this country. I
Because the market
come from
sometimes-
Toro, where we are called the tea home of Uganda.
Yes.
And because there are factories that do not have tea,
Yes.
leaf, the competition for leaf, there is no tea authority in this country, and they have been demanding for a tea authority. I don't know why government doesn't want to set up one. They are demanding for a tea authority. There is no tea authority, so there are no controls. People are harvesting tea in the night. They're picking
But
tea in
those
the
are
night
things that happen.
to sell it. And the question is, you have the tea industry, for example. if Nile Breweries was not organizing its farmers who produce apple pod and sorghum, or are they the same thing?
Barley.
Barley and sorghum. If they didn't have control over those farmers and guaranteed them a market, they would have a crisis. Just like Mukwano organizes his people and then has everybody poaching from them.
Exactly.
Now, the question that a ministry, very beautifully worded, Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development, was doing some basic planning, was linking development to financing, you would
Private
get
sector.
somewhere.
Exactly.
And so my question to you, Apollo, is if you look at the structure of our economy, it's not absence of people trying to do things. When people were told they needed to grow jatropha, they went and grew jatropha.
Exactly.
Then there was winter in Madagascar, I think, and there was no vanilla production. Everybody went into vanilla production.
Yep.
Then the Madagascans started producing again. Vanilla collapsed here. People are running around trying to find things to do, burning their fingers in most cases. And the question is, what went wrong? Let me go back.
Basically, just like I've been trying to put it forward, the main catalyst we need with our farmers and to get this country to grow the way it should is provide a local market. Provide a market for the produce that the farmers need to grow. We don't have to spend lots of money in production because the Ugandan farmer is extremely responsible to the market. Extremely responsive. If you put that factory in the Soroti, for example, for oranges, people have been growing oranges to supply that factory for the last I don't know how many years. The basic calculation that were done just last year on the output that can come out of what people had actually anticipated and planted, the factory that's being set up can only consume less than 10% of what those farmers are
Was the factory set up?
It's still under construction.
Was the factory set up?
It is still under construction.
You worked with the president. No, you worked with the president. You're a member of parliament at some stage.
At least I can say with
the factory is still
under
under
construction.
construction.
But the farmer was so responsive that the capacity being stored there can only consume less than 10%.
But those are the value chain
So
things that have
this
to be
is
done.
what
But of course
this is the
biggest
problem we're
challenge
having.
which, needs
You
to
set the market, the farmers are going to
No,
supply.
I will tell you what we found out on
He
that.
is from the brewery, he can see that happen.
There is a whole
Yes,
study
yeah.
on that flour, on that
So-
factory, because that fruit processing was one of the studies that was done, and these studies are available with the National Planning Authority. And that's why I'm telling you the issues. The factory, whether it is there or not, when we went there to visit these farms, because we wanted to establish that there is no production problem, and we found the NADs had actually done a good job. The farmers had the knowledge, they had produced. We found traders from Kenya and from Rwanda and Sudan fighting for the oranges.
Exactly.
Which problem is going to come to the factory as well, that even as you're saying 10%, you do not have sufficient quantities to meet the local demand, the regional demand, and the factory itself. You have that
For
problem.
me, I'm much more concerned.
Do you know
about
the farmers are crying for the market for their
factory.
produce when they
What I'm
at
more
peak
concerned
season?
about with that factory is the end product.
Yeah.
The market for the end
Exactly.
product. Because I don't know whether it's going to be for crushing into pump. But now the uptick of that product.
produce.
If there is no proper linkage with the final fruit processors, that will be the
Even
challenge.
getting
strategy.
the oranges
Why
from the
should that-
myriad of farms to the factory. That linkage,
The strategy is
Not-
very well laid
the
out. I've
farming,
been
I'm not
intimately
worried
involved
about.
in doing work with this factory. The strategy has been very well laid out. All I can say is the main constraint that's going to face the factory is the capacity constraints. And that capacity constraint should be addressed.
No, you can
immediately.
always
Apollo,
expand.
are
Capacity
you
cannot be an
speaking-
issue.
are you
So long
speaking
as there's
about-
market, you know.
The-
Are you speaking about a farmer? Many have been crying over the years. In the entire Soroti region, they've been producing this fruit. It's being affected by fruit fly. Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
and now the drought has
a
set in.
drought. Some of them borrowed money. When they are in peak production, they can't
There's
even
not
find market.
sufficient market.
No, they can't find market
Yes.
for the.
That is very true.
Eh?
That's very true.
Yeah, but this
And
is the
here
whole
we're
point.
setting up a factory that can only take less than 10%.
But it needs to take the 10% in the first place.
Yes.
It's not even taking the 10%.
It's
So
not yet ready.
what are they producing for?
It's not yet
Yeah, but even this way,
You could take this discussion to
So-
Kisoro and the Irish potato factory. You could take it to Bushenyi and the banana.
No, you even have
So
your sugarcane
it
plantations here.
brings
There is
you
a market
down.
for sugar in this country.
Yes.
There are machines here which have no sugar to crush.
The-
It's a production issue.
The issue is a market issue.
We're producing
It's
more than
a
we can
market
consume.
issue.
Maybe.
You need to know how much sugar we are importing. You need to know how much sugar we are importing.
No, we have a deficit we're exporting.
Now,
No, we are importing sugar.
Well, that is now something for
These
Minister
are
of
the
Trade.
facts you don't
But
have.
no.
Somebody
We
imports
export-
sugar and packs it because there's
And
no
then
sugar cane in this country to crush. There's hardly any sugar. You talk to them. There are factories that are sitting in the eastern part of the country with no sugar cane. People are harvesting sugar cane at 14 months. The official time is 18 months.
months.
And that's when it concentrates the sugar. So harvesting it at 14 months, you're already missing out the time when this cane concentrates the sugar. But you can't wait for 18 months. So that's why I'm saying market is there.
Overcapitalization.
Processing is there. The whole production problem comes to the farmer. Who is going to organize that farmer? You have land issues. People have lost land. You have input issues
extremely
which are
frustrated
bad.
farmers.
You have to sort out that
Dr.
piece.
Mhumuza, you have extremely frustrated farmers.
Exactly. Sort them out.
Let me give you an example.
Sort them out.
You talk about, for example, the milk industry. Keeping cattle is very expensive.
Yep.
The farmer spends on acaricides, spends on putting the farm together. It's an open market, so they buy fake
Items, yeah.
items
Those are
of
the
the
things to
market
sort out.
that can't kill ticks.
Those are
And
the things
then
to sort out.
afterwards, they produce milk, and a liter of milk is going for 400 shillings.
300
And in
shillings.
town it is
300
2,500. Where is
These
the
are
problem?
just planning issues.
300 shillings.
Where is the problem?
No, the
Where's the
problem
problem?
is...
But that's what we
you
talk
the
about. The
It's
market is not organized.
The market is not, it's
The
not
milk
there.
market is not organized.
So you
Also,
tell me you're building a factory and you
no,
don't have
look, farmers,
I don't
the
buy into
best
that.
way to help a farmer is first
Go
of
and
all to
market
have
them.
Yeah, but
price, in a guaranteed market and a stable
Guarantee the
price.
market, stable price. They
Such
will
that he can
produce-
plan.
They will
You
produce.
can plan for the inputs and be
Myself,
able
I'll
to
produce
determine
I've given
whether he
institution.
will make profit.
I don't know whether you have been in town of late. The drought that we are going through.
We are in town.
I had a statement telling farmers not to sell food. Now here is somebody. Here is somebody telling farmers, don't even dare look at the market. So this country's problem, as I said, you all have your rights, your economy is in this space. But when you dig deep to say where exactly is the economic problem, Uganda has no problem with an agricultural market. Rwanda, DRC, Sudan, even after war,
It is a
they continue to eat.
disorganized market.
Exactly, not the
It
market
can
side.
be worse than no market.
The bigger problem is on the production side. Because you have people who are driving through bad roads, taking their food source from
No,
Kenya,
the
from
production-
Rwanda to pick the food,
the
and they
production
find nothing.
Is
The
affected by the
production
disorganized market.
is disorganized because the market
It's
is
disorganized.
Yeah,
It
but
starts
you
It
with
the
should be the
markets.
market to
Unless
organize the
the
production.
the
We need
market-
the market to organize the production.
No.
That's what I'm saying. I will form a cooperative tomorrow if you guarantee me a certain
the,
price
the
for a certain
traders you
product.
have,
Yeah.
the traders
Tomorrow
you have,
I'll
the
flood
traders
you
you
with
have are like
Yeah.
these guys who go at the landing site. Where is the fish? They buy and go. You have no traders involved, interested going beyond that. One, they do not have the capacity to go and organize farmers who grow maize in Bukedea. It's complex.
But
for
that
me.
cannot be done by traders.
Exactly.
That cannot be
It's
done
exercise.
by
Hold
manufacturing.
it a moment.
It can be done
Hold
by
it a moment.
manufacturing,
Hold
not
it a
by
moment.
traders.
I'm finding the Ugandan entrepreneur struggling here. Is it Andrew Rugasira?
Yes.
Good African Coffee? Went and organized farmers in Kasese to grow coffee.
Yes.
There's another man who attempted to organize farmers also in the coffee industry, I think.
Uganda, I think.
Kaweri
Kaweri
Coffee,
but
which
even
displaced a lot of people, but was trying to organize the
even
market
the
there.
Zigoti people, rest in peace, the man passed away the other day, the
Yes.
Katos.
Yes,
They tried to do it in Kapchorwa.
yes.
They have a market in Japan. The investment required.
You have
massive.
people. You have people like Bugisu Cooperative, the one of Nandala Mafabi and his friends, producing in an organized way.
Yes.
So the organization of the farmer is not lacking.
It's not.
In some places it is.
The market is. He was talking about the end product of a fruit factory, and you have supermarket shelves filled with juices from Egypt,
Everywhere else except
from
Uganda.
South Africa. Yes. Thank you very much. Everywhere else except Uganda.
Yeah.
So what's the problem? I'm going back to the same question.
The market is there. By the time the
basically-
Egyptians come on that market,
Yes, it
it's
means the
there.
market
The market
exists.
is there. So me,
What's the
like
problem?
I said, the focus must be on the market, and we, from coming from the enterprise development angle, the model we want to use to actually get this done is by ensuring that this clustered production that has been very well nicely done by Maif, this area citrus, this area coffee, set up production hubs, factories, validation centers in this area.
Who sets them up? Government, private sector?
Government and private sector can work together to get this done. For example, UIA has these parks all over the place. If in
None
each
of them
park,
in name.
yeah, well, if in each park we can have a facility that can process the local produce coming out of that area, then you have a market.
You're not helping
The
the
farmers
discussion
are
for-
going to supply that particular factory, and that factory, if it's very well planned and its market linkages both within and outside is organized, then you have a value chain approach
the talk
that
of
affects and impacts the farmer. No, not all if, it can be done. It can be
that's what
done.
we're saying. Let's
So
discuss.
you have
many ifs,
you-
many
there's-
it can
there's
be.
no-
Exactly.
there's no
Let's
if.
discuss the doing.
No,
Okay.
the doing.
Let's come back.
Discuss is about action.
Yes.
When we come back,
no. Let me,
how do you
let
do
me
it?
talk about how do you do it. No, we're doing it. We're doing it. To start with,
Uh-huh.
we have, for instance, we've set up an export center, processing center for the coffee farmers. Okay, we've set up one here in Central. What that is doing now, we're having farmer groups that we work with who do the coffee, come and add value to this coffee, and actually export to Europe and the US. So what we've done is provide the market and the market linkages.
Let me tell
because
you.
we have the supply contracts, we have the farmer here, you have the production hub, and it's working very well. These guys are earning
You
dollar
are an
incomes.
incubator, anything happens in the laboratory.
No.
When
Incubation
you
is not
scale
about
out
that.
there,
It's not about, no.
when you scale out there,
This, I'm
the
talking
laboratory
about, I'm
experiment
talking
is
about
there.
a $3 million investment.
Incubation,
So we
yes.
don't incubate little things
This
only.
economy is
We've grown
$28 billion,
Exactly.
not
But
$3 million.
replicate that. No, replicate that
That's the problem.
100 times.
That's the problem.
And that's where the government
and you know what? And
That's
you know
where
what?
the government comes in.
And you know what?
Reputation, you're out of the lab.
You know what?
Yes.
Government
One I
is
will
coming.
tell you, AB InBev alone is bigger than the economy several times.
Exactly. Incubation?
There's a farmer friend of mine called Abdallah Mangalija. He's deep in a village called Kasenda, somewhere. He's grown about 300 to 500 acres of coffee. The president was to visit went to visit him the other day when on this Operation Wealth Creation tour.
Oh, that case is
Yes, he's not in Kasenda, he's somewhere in Kasenda. And to find the things you're talking about, if he's watching us, he must be wondering which world you live in. He must be wondering.
It's a good thing you provide this platform. Now he knows. Now he knows.
No, let's take a
So
break.
it
We'll
is
be right back.
really-
A very interesting discussion in studio tonight on the economy of this country. We have not even talked about
The
tourism.
economy is stupid.
The economy is stupid. We have not even talked about tourism. I think we'll spend some time discussing tourism. But of course, the more detailed discussion will be tomorrow when NTV is marking 10 years and other economic summit, which will be tomorrow here at the Serena Conference Center. Gentlemen, you have Dr. Muhumuza, who both at Makerere and at the ministry when he was there, developed plans, designed things, strategies. You have Apollo here, who is incubating. And what we're wondering about is how far do your lab experiments go, and how far
Can they go?
can
Your-
they go,
your micro-
and how far
your macro.
does Dr. Muhumuza and his colleagues
Macro approach.
macro approaches and nice reports and
Scaling out.
feasibility studies and stuff go? Because when you go across the country, you find a lot of enterprising people, a lot of people burning their fingers, crying with borrowed money. They are actually into production. When they produce, they can't find market. When they haven't produced, they are told, you need to produce. And people are lost along the way. Now let's
And I think if you want to make it easier for the farmers, you shouldn't be asking them to look for market beyond their sub-county.
No, not even sub.
And that's always where the problem
In economics,
is.
we call it farm gate.
Yeah,
That is
farm
where the
gate,
farmer's
yeah.
business ends.
Absolutely.
Because he has to go back and chase the bird
So,
from the rice.
If you,
If he goes to the market, the rice is gone.
so first of all, to me, one of the
he'll forget to
the
irrigate.
obvious challenge in this country is that most households cannot get regular income. And that even rolls forward to low purchasing power, which of course affects the economy.
And that's for me.
So
is the
if you
market
are
issue.
not going to address the problem of households being able to produce something and sell within the vicinity
Exactly.
of their farms,
That's why.
then we are not going to move far.
But on
And I think they can
why
only
I
do
really-
that. Let's take maize, which is widely produced in Uganda, but the market fluctuates and is disorganized because there is no deliberate effort to say, look, how is maize consumed in this country, by who, and how do we start an organized processing of maize that rolls back to farm production. This must be, that's the only way you can do it. So the farmers produce, whether it is half a sack, they don't have to go to town looking for, and then some guy drops the price, then when there is no maize, raises the price. I mean,
This doesn't
they
work
get
for everybody.
frustrated.
So that's exactly
Now,
my
They
my
get
point.
frustrated.
Who should fix
That-
that?
exactly.
I think that's what the debate is.
Yes.
No, should it be the processor of the maize to take that extra burden and load to supervise
Should it be the
100,000
farmers?
farmers? Should we let the farmers organize
He
themselves in a
can
cooperative?
do it.
That
He
is the
can
question.
do it
So
if he knows that the maize that is going to come will easily go
Exactly.
off his hands.
Exactly.
He will take the effort to go and organize the farmers, give seed and what have you, set up maybe even a private extension system.
So this is exactly.
So the challenge is, where will the maize go in such a way that doesn't rot within the factory?
This is
Up at
exactly
Curate,
the
you're doing,
challenge.
you're doing
This is
experiments
exactly.
that can't get out of the lab. When they meet the reality on the ground, things are different.
They melt.
They
That
melt.
is
The
very
ice
good.
cream
Now
melts
let me
out of
explain
the
on how this model works. We don't do experiments. Actually, the funding, my funding that got the organization started was very clear. You don't put a single penny in experiments. We look at innovations that are ready for scale, and we scale. So we don't do any lab kind of arrangement.
Scaling
Actually,
means what?
Scaling means
'Cause
you
go from
have
2
something.
farmers to 100. Here we are talking about 5.5 million households.
What we're talking about now for scale, like I say, over the last 1.5 years, we've managed to sell farmers coffee. Okay, coming from over, if I do the multiples, over 10,000 farmers, both in the Rwenzori region and Elgon region, selling directly to Europe and the US at a market price that is 30% beyond what they could get.
Can I ask a question?
So I think that is some
can I
scale.
ask a quick question? Can I ask a quick question?
I want to explain how this model works.
Just a quick question. How much coffee is consumed in this country?
And that is the same question I was going to ask. I think
So we have a
need-
multi-pronged approach to this. We are consuming less than 10%.
Less than 10%.
It's now growing a little bit beyond that. About 10 years ago, we had 1 or 2 coffee shops in the country. Right now,
So
every
why is your focus on selling to Europe if you have 90% of a market that is unsatisfied?
It's a multi-pronged approach. It's a multi-pronged approach. Just like you said, we have a very small market here. But again, we look at this in 2 angles. We have a problem of youth, jobs for the youth. So what we do is, what can the youth do that has something to do with a farm and can earn him an income? Now, that's our local approach. Now, we get these youths who are very interested in coffee. We train them barista training. We train them how to make the best cup of coffee. We give them the financing to get started. We directly responsible for setting up over 10 coffee shops around the city and beyond. And this has got a multiplier effect. Right now, as you can see, we have, I could say, over 50 coffee shops in across Kampala, or across the country. So basically, the local approach is get the youth who doesn't have a job, give him the technical expertise and the financing to get it done. Guide him and get him started.
Let me give you some numbers.
Then, since we are producing a lot of coffee, we cannot consume all the
Apollo,
coffee.
let me
here.
give you
so
some
we
numbers.
export the other bulk outside.
Let me give you some numbers. About 83% of employable people in this country don't have a job. 68% of this country's population are engaged in agriculture. The uptake of loan facilities from banks, I don't have the numbers, but maybe Dr. does. How many people are able to access financing of any sort? But also you need to look at the other side, how many people are able to meet the obligations to pay back. And you look at this, you find people struggling to do everything they can within their means to do something. starting an enterprise, trying to, be it in agriculture, be it at processing level, be it somewhere else, I'm looking for the missing link that can actually spur these individuals to multiply in numbers so that they can spur the country to make the necessary leap to middle income status. And I'm wondering, from your experience, is 2020 a realistic target to have moved this country, given that you're actually doing things and you think things are working, that will move this country to middle income status in the next 4 years?
I am extremely pessimistic about that target. Why? I could give you an example. Like I said, I really believe in creating the market. And by creating the market, we can move the farmer up the value chain. We can get the farmer to earn sufficiently. But Uganda Investment Authority drew up a nice plan for the first production hub. Just to put here in Namave, almost 5 years ago. Every single year, this is put in a budget and presented to finance, and it comes back as an unfunded priority.
Okay, thank you.
So with that kind of attitude towards agriculture, which is our core, our core thing that we do here, we can never get to that level with the kind of funding we're getting. Unless that changes, I see it as
I think that speaks to his argument. If that system is already organized, there is, at least government has made an investment in Namave.
It has not.
Where
it has
are
failed.
his
It has
private
failed.
people that was talking about who process? Who has stopped them from going to mobilize
No,
the farmers?
it
Why
ha-
are they going to finance?
It has
You know,
failed to finance the.
why are they going to finance?
It has not. It has
we
failed.
have already talked about Honor gave us a very good impression here
It has
of
failed.
these linkages. That somebody can go and borrow $100 million from Japan, where interest rates are very low, even in Europe, come and invest it here. You want to go back and say, don't they know where Uganda is? What exactly is the problem somewhere? And for me, that I think is the discussion we're not addressing here. What are these key issues? For you to say finance did not provide that financing, it's because for you are looking at that as though the world begins and ends there. Finance is looking at so many other things. Your revenue budget is 11, 12 trillion. Your budget of expenditure is 21 trillion. So you're already looking at a deficit. You're trying to allocate money here, you're trying to allocate money here, you're trying to allocate money here. Now, the person who has not received his money will begin to say, you have not made it a priority. It is a priority to me. But my question is, before you even go to government, Honor didn't go to government to look for money is there. His people came, found a market, found a niche, brought money and invested in. You need to learn from them. What is it that happened to scale up this epuripuri and barley and all sorts of things, which is not happening with your coffee farmers, and you're waiting for government to move it, which is not happening. What is wrong with the tea? What is wrong with the sugar cane?
You need to make sure your products are as nice as they
There needs to be a market.
Yeah. Thank you very much. That's a
I
good
think
one.
the message is saying, even if it doesn't add the beer part of it, the products are as nice as the market expects them.
Yes,
Exactly.
yes.
So if you're going to deliver trust to the market, you lose the market.
Is that
I
actually,
am not trusting.
hold it, Apollo. You're not in the hot seat here. We're trying to we're trying to find answers for this economy.
At least some right
And
questions.
the-
Even if we don't find the answers,
Yes.
let's have the right questions.
Exactly.
I was going to nail him.
And Dr.
I will.
Mumza, let me come back to you. The knowledge is available. The problem defines itself by the people you meet. That is the intention of government, to transform into better people. Why don't we see these fantastic plans translated into actions that can deliver that change?
One we have already discussed and said, when you are looking at something, it's a whole line of things. One way government operates is in silos. Somebody will be saying, this is my mandate. And at the end of the day, the moment they fail on their mandate, the other party also is going to fail. And you try to pull them together. I remember I was sitting in a very serious discussion after I moved through a road from, I think, in Tungamo, through Ishaka, and then to Izwera. And now, so this road was subdivided as district roads. So you find a district has worked on its part, another district has not worked on its part. So I said, no, to me, the traveler, don't tell me you're now in Intungamo, you have now entered Bushenyi, you go and blame Bushenyi. This is a national road. And you possibly had the discussion where another 10,000 kilometers of roads were upgraded to national roads. We asked UNRWA to identify all these roads that should no longer be a mandate
Of
of
the
an
district.
individual district.
Mm.
Now, this is what we are saying. When I want to deliver Apripri, when I want to deliver textiles, when I want to deliver food to the schools, I'm already cross-cutting about 5 ministries. If any of them doesn't work, because you're talking about land, you're talking about marketing, you're talking about National Bureau of Standards, you talked about the farmers who buy things, and because the farmer is looking for the right seed, you get the wrong one.
Okay.
The right acaricide, you get the wrong one.
Can I put in
The
a quick
space is not in agriculture, the space is elsewhere.
Can I put in a quick question there?
All those need to be put together.
We have seen the number of ministries, or at least ministers, expand almost every other cycle. Now you're talking about a cabinet of about 70,
Yes.
73. And if you're talking about, I thought we would be talking about consolidation.
Now, those are the discussion we want to
Yes.
have. How do we get out of this?
Oh, yeah.
We need to be consolidating so that one person is responsible, and you can say the buck stops with you. You are responsible for this. And this person should drive and drag the agenda. But government is supposed to be structured around the lead of government business, the Prime Minister.
Prime Minister. This
He
is
can
like
whip
the
all
Prime
these
Minister.
fellows. So
Exactly.
the split is not that much of an issue. But as I said, what is government? It's a very complex issue that you also have to answer behind there. Because somebody will be coming and saying, that's my mandate, I want my budget. And I remember I sat down and we were cutting budgets, including within the ministry itself, like you'll be saying this agriculture. Let's put the money for supervision of acaricides and all these things into that department. Because they are the people responsible for that bit. And somebody will say, no, don't take out my budget. We determine our budget here, you finance, you shouldn't preside over it. Now, this for me are the things that really annoy, because at the end of the day, they are feeding into the slowdown in the economic issue. They are feeding into the failure
Charles,
of the market.
I hope
agree.
it's good
Those
the
are the issues.
NTV
Those
is
are the
putting
issues.
together this summit.
Yes.
I think the question to ask is, if it has not worked so far, why don't we change
Exactly.
the approach?
And what do we change?
I think that's the
And to which
tragedy. I think almost the Americans, when they selected Trump, because we thought it was crazy, but I think that level of frustration, I'm not suggesting we need to change a leader in this country, but we can at least change the approach. I think the government needs to.
You no longer work for government, so you shouldn't worry.
You can take leadership without changing a leader. You
The government
can see
needs
governments
to-
reinvent themselves.
For me, what comes through all this debate is the question of interest. Human beings always do things out of self-interest, largely.
Wrong.
Just hold on, largely.
Yeah.
And to try and ignore that element and think that he says who is government, the inability for you to place your finger on who is government is a crisis in itself.
Absolutely.
It means
Everyone would tell
there is no interest in many of us who are in government, or people just think to whom it may concern. And that's quite, can be very, the president has lamented consistently because of that problem. That because people sort of are looking for
Economics survives
self-interest,
on one
the
fundamental
public
principle.
good.
greed.
Yeah.
Greed. You remove greed from economics, it collapses.
Okay.
What drives us is the greed
so-
of getting things better for myself.
And
What
that is-
government and the public sector
that's-
does is to
that's-
control that individualism.
No, I thought that's the American capitalist approach.
Elsewhere,
Their
and that's
success is
the point.
elsewhere. Yes,
That's the
it's
point. That's
work.
why governments are arranging those ideological things.
Yes.
How do you control the individual greed? Because even in the socialism, you'll be trying to overwrite that individual greed by very strict codes of conduct that are trying to look at the holistic.
Gentlemen-
In capitalism, you let this guy make his money, tax him heavily, and take to the people. Now, you tax and keep to yourself, you are not controlling the greed
Yeah, so
and
for,
economic
for me,
collapse.
my
Gentlemen, our time
argument
is
is
out.
how do we mix public money with individual interest to deliver? Use public money to put in the hands of people who are driven by profit in a way that you can control them and they deliver for you, than putting it in
Gentlemen-
the hands of people who are not driven by profit.
Our time is
but
out. We need to get out of here. Our time is out. We need to get out of here. And one of the things we need to be disciplined about is time. So I'm afraid we may not be able to stress
Time
this.
is money.
We haven't been able to discuss the tourism aspect of driving the economy. There are challenges there because I think a lot of the focus is on the on a Caucasian and now a little bit increasingly an Asiatic, is that what they call them? Chinese? No, Orientals. Orientals as the definition of a tourist, very little tapping into domestic tourism and regional tourism.
No, just a quick one. I think just even the bigger problem is the focus on wildlife tourism.
Yes.
And now we have the tragedy that much of the tourism is being affected by the situation like in Kasese. You need tourism that can even take place in the city.
Agro-tourism.
I thought we attempted with the Rolex and other things. and the
That's
other
not tourism, that's
the other day there was
that is
Lango,
diet
Lango,
now.
the visit to Lango to visit, to open up those opportunities in Lango for domestic tourism, which I think some of these
But
discussions
where are monuments in this city that you can go? Historic monuments that tell our history, where tourists can go and
where are the people,
where are they? I'm
where are the
asking
people
you.
to tell the history?
Yeah, maybe they could tell the history.
Where are the people to tell the history?
This discussion, gentlemen, is continuing, and for our viewers, unfortunately, we're not able to take your phone calls, but I can see very active discussions on Twitter. Twitter is very active. Facebook is also very active. You can continue. You know, we opened the fountain somewhere near at the end of Kampala Road, Bombo Road, beginning of Bombo Road. It's an actual Christmas tree. It works during Christmas. Now it's about to be turned on. You think about tourism. It's about
running a fountain is a very expensive thing. Maybe that's the reason.
There is another one. There is another one down here at the Nakumat roundabout. Yes. I think it might also be turned on now. And now that it's Christmas season, they work seasonally, and we can promote our tourism that way. We'll have a discussion about that. We also have now, at least we know that the government is giving a definite time schedule for flying the Uganda Airlines. There are lots of debates about the wisdom, the economic wisdom in re-establishing the airline.
The business wisdom.
And the business wisdom. Yes. But people will be asking the question, why does Ethiopia Airlines succeed and Kenya Airways struggle? There's a report that was run in the East African sometime, which shows that the Kenya Airways troubles are actually not business.
It's not a business case.
It's
That's
not a business case. Issue. It's a governance issue.
That's the governance issue.
So is that also Uganda's problem?
It is going to be.
And SAA?
Because
Gentlemen,
it was before.
Our time is out. We need to get out of here. Thank you very much, Dr. Fred Muhumuza. Thank you very much, Apollo Segawa. And thank you very much, Honorable Peter Komore. Thank you very much to all our viewers for joining us tonight. Thank you very much to the production crew that stays up late to deliver this show to you. Join the discussion tomorrow. It will be broadcast live on, or telecast live on NTV. There will also be, I think, on invite, people attending the actual event where the president, I think, will be chief guest, and there will be robust discussions, and we'll continue the debate about the economy and our journey to a middle-income country come 2020, or wherever that happens. We had a vision 2025, we moved it forward 2040. We'll be continuing to watch the discussion. And we continue also to watch the situation in Kasese and where that will end. We'll keep you up to date. From me, it's a good night.